Welcome back. $200,000. That's where the price of Bitcoin should be, according to this chief investment officer over at Bitwise Investments, one of the ETF issuers and issuers of many other crypto funds as well. And we're kind of hearing the sentiment around the ecosystem of finance, not only from Bitwise, but also from BlackRock, also from the Trump administration directly. This is Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, also founder and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, which is basically a financial powerhouse, like a hedge fund type of firm. And they are very deep in crypto, very deep in this digital world. And we are seeing pretty much the entire administration being in the same alignment there. Now, what we're going to be talking about in today's video is the fact that we have Howard Lutnick saying it's Bitcoin, not blockchain, where previously we heard, administrations and regulators saying it's blockchain, not Bitcoin. Even the banks said that. So I'm going to show you guys a few videos, and we're going to be really exploring kind of where the Bitcoin price should be, where we are going, because all the indicators, you guys can look at my recent videos right here on the Cryptoviser podcast. And by the way, don't forget to hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. That way you never miss a new video on this channel. Giving thumbs up are free. It lets me know you guys enjoy this content. It lets YouTube know. And again, it's free to do. So do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up. On this channel, you guys can look at my recent videos. We have talked about the bullish indicators, the bullish signals in the market that are showing us the inflows have are starting to flow in. I should say the flows have reversed, because we have been seeing pretty much at the beginning of 2025 a massive outflows from a lot of crypto products and crypto spot products as well, the cryptos themselves, as the likes of MicroStrategy and Marathon Digital and many other companies are buying up massive quantities of Bitcoin. But now we have a new administration. We have new regulators or heads of these regulatory agencies. And one is Howard Lutnick, who is the U.S. Commerce Secretary. And he is a big and has been a big Bitcoin bull, right? And anybody who thinks that that's bad, I mean, guys, this is for the future of the dollar, the future of this nation, the future of our prosperity, and really effectively the world, because right now the world runs on the dollar. The dollar is the world reserve currency, at least most of the world. So there will be negative impacts on the rest of the world if the debt doesn't get under control. The dollar has to be reimagined, which it is right now. This is why we're seeing stablecoin legislation, the Federal Reserve activating with USDC. We're seeing Tether starting to come into the United States as well. So where we're going to be in a few years is going to be very, very different from where we are today from a financial aspect. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to get very, very wealthy off of this, right? People who build or building products, people who are creating new things, and investors in these projects, in these companies, in these coins. But part of understanding is understanding what these flows mean, right? When there's massive outflows, that's a buy signal. When there's massive inflows, that is the sell signal, right? Because we want to make sure that we're selling high and buying low, not buying high and selling higher. That's what a lot of people are going to do, and then they're going to keep doing that, and then they're going to overtrade the market, and then we're going to be in a bear market, and they're going to have lost everything that they could have gained, multi-million dollars. We've seen this happening cycle after cycle after cycle. People who are multimillionaires go to literally having nothing. And it doesn't have to be that way. You just have to have a strategy and play it out. So we have to understand how to create that strategy, and understanding that is where this market is going, right? Where the country is going, where the regulators are going, where the investors are going, where the big money is going. So let's listen to what Howard Lutnick says here. And then I'm going to show you guys a few other videos and then show you guys some data. And we're also going to be talking about Bitcoin mining companies, because in this interview, Lutnick also talks about the Bitcoin mining companies. And you guys know I'm a huge Bitcoin mining stock bull. I think that they're all highly undervalued at this point, and they're all going much, much higher. So let's listen to Howard Lutnick here about Bitcoin, not blockchain. And give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget that.
People always started with, you should learn blockchain, right? Remember the whole blockchain this and blockchain that? Yep. And so I started looking at and trying to understand blockchain technology and how that would impact financial services and things like that. But then, of course, then I started saying, well, is it really blockchain I should be thinking about, or should I be thinking about Bitcoin? And then the attributes of Bitcoin, the fundamental attributes, 21 million, There aren't going to be any more. There's no one messing with the software. There's no one you can fix it or change it. It's just a rare entity. And so that rarity is what creates its value. And so I played with it a little bit, bought a little bit, then bought a little bit more. And then I started really learning about the whole ecosystem. And then my firm I brought my firm into the market, try to be an advisor, analysts, cover it, talk about it. So I think it was just until 2020, and then 2020 we went all in with it in every way. And I guess that's early. In 2025 talk, it's pretty early.
I think we're all early. I think in the grand scheme of things with Bitcoin.
Oh, I like that answer. That's a good one. I like that. I got to go with that from now on. That's going to become mine.
So you guys can hear, they learned about it, they went in 2020, and this is, again, BlackRock was already doing some experimenting with Bitcoin. I remember we previously did a story, I think it was around 2020, it was a few years before, a few years after, maybe during, I don't know. But Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, went on one of these financial news channels and started talking about Bitcoin. And then what they did was they basically looked at their traffic on BlackRock's like investments, and they saw a lot of people were interested in that Bitcoin conversation. And so now, obviously, what do we see? BlackRock is diving very, very deep into all of crypto and making ETFs and many other financial type of products. And now the BlackRock chief investment officer says that institutional investors are largely focused on Bitcoin right now. So let's listen to what she says. Again, chief investment officer over at BlackRock. And again, this is the largest hedge fund in the world, right? The largest Bitcoin ETF currently on the planet. And they're going to continue to acquire more and more and more. And so it's very important to understand what they're saying, because this is where massive money inflows are going to be coming in, right? There's going to be other products that are created because of what BlackRock's doing. There's also going to be companies that are going to be investing in the BlackRock products. So that's going to cause more inflows, more buying, and potentially upflow or uptrend in the market. And when you have that uptrend, that is what people call exit liquidity, right? Because somebody is selling those coins and taking that liquidity and exiting the market with it. It's just a matter of whether it's going to be you or it's going to be somebody else. Because at some point, that inflows will slow down, as we see during many different cycles out of a bull market into a bear market. And then what happens? Prices crater. And so let's listen to the BlackRock chief investment officer.
I'm not a deep enough student of kind of the institutional ecosystems in the other coins right now, but in terms of the conversations that we've had with institutional investors, they are really largely focused on Bitcoin right now, particularly in this environment. Ethereum is still a distant second.
Distant second.
Yeah.
So we're not even talking about revenue generating protocols or anything like that.
And remember, we're talking about the institutional investors who are broadly in 60-40 equity bond portfolios and looking to figure out what the new sources of return and diversification will be for them. They want both of those, and that's what's bringing them to.
Happen behind the scenes and will become more public is.
So it looks like they're editing some of this, so we're going to get back to the video in just a second, but this is very important because there's a lot of people who say, oh, well, Ethereum's right behind. It's like, well, she just said it's a distant second, right? That doesn't mean that it can't become a close second very rapidly. Because once people and these companies, these large investment firms start moving into Bitcoin, then they're going to also look into potentially other yield generating products. We're starting to see this happening. Even with Bitcoin, Coinbase just opened a Bitcoin yield fund for their institutional investors where they can earn 4 to 8% per year on their Bitcoin holdings. This is very, very interesting because really Ethereum does have some type of reward mechanism or dividend mechanism, which is staking. But it apparently, this is not what institutions are looking at right now. They are looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the barrier, right? Once we get past Bitcoin and there's time to kind of figure it out, like what MicroStrategy is doing, we're going to be talking about MicroStrategy in a few minutes here, but what they're doing is they're moving very rapidly. They're trying to be the first mover and just go. And they're testing really the whole buying Bitcoin with debt situation. This has never been done before at this level. And so other companies are watching what is happening with MicroStrategy, how MicroStrategy's stock is being affected. They're watching what's happening with Marathon Digital, doing this as well with massive acquisitions of Bitcoin. Now they're looking at 21, which is going to be Jack Mallers' kind of merged company. There's a lot of different things that people and these large firms are looking at, and they don't want to take risks, guys. You have to understand these 60-40 portfolios which she's talking about. These are like rock solid safe investments. Like the likelihood that you're going to have downside in those are very, very low compared to a highly volatile asset, especially buying in the bull market. This is something we've been talking about the last few months, is that MicroStrategy, all these companies that are buying Bitcoin, they're buying at the top. Granted, this may not be the forever top, but it's the local top. And so if they keep buying and we go into a bear market at some point, they're going to be in the red. And so what is going to happen then? Nobody really knows this. And this is why I think that, we're hearing this kind of conversation where they're saying effectively that, the big money, like they're kind of learning about Bitcoin, but other than that, they're not really focused or interested in anything else. And so this could take 10 years from now. I mean, Bitcoin has been around for more than 10 years, but this could take another 10 years before you see the first altcoin really being integrated, maybe even outside of Ethereum. Maybe Ethereum will be done within that 10-year period, but maybe not. So again, it takes a lot longer than most people think for a lot of these things to play out. And this is why watching these type of videos and compiling them so that we can understand, yes, we are very bullish, but we have to make sure we're bullish on the right things. Let's continue listening in.
And that's what's bringing them to.
Happen behind the scenes and will become more public is, so stablecoin started with.
But in terms of the conversation.
This is not me
to actually
editing.
think
This
are
is them
investable
editing.
right now from an institutional lens. Bitcoin and Ethereum.
I'm not a deep enough student of kind of the institutional ecosystems in the other coins right now.
Okay, so this is just a repeat. They just repeated it twice. But yeah, you guys kind of get it from BlackRock. And then we have over here the chief investment officer over at Bitwise Investments, which is one of the ETF issuers of Bitcoin, and they have a few other different crypto funds. He says that Bitcoin should be trading at $150,000 to $200,000 today, but it's being suppressed. Do you believe him? Well, let's listen to what he says.
There has been so much fundamentally positive news, and it's just been buried sort of in the background. We've caused ourselves to ignore it. There's the strategic Bitcoin reserve. There's the SEC pulling back on essentially every lawsuit. There's progress on stablecoin legislation. There's talk of market structure legislation. There was the White House Crypto Summit. These are game-changing positive developments that should put Bitcoin trading at $150,000 or $200,000 today. It's been suppressed because in the short term, this overhang of the economic uncertainty is weighing on the markets. I think if that is released, we're at new all-time highs quickly, and we're on our way to where I think we'll be at the end of the year, which is Bitcoin 200,000. So I think there's been this sort of suppression of really good news. If that suppression is removed, I think it's a coiled spring. So in that scenario, I think we do exceptionally well.
Is there anything else that needs to happen to get us to Bitcoin at 200K by the end of the year?
I don't think so. You have these three horsemen of insatiable demand for Bitcoin. You have the ETFs, which I continue to think will have strong net flows this year. You have companies. We saw MicroStrategy buying more Bitcoin. I think the number of companies buying Bitcoin is going to triple this year. I think the game theory is on. It's slower than people maybe want in this impatient crypto world, but I think countries around the world are going to be buying Bitcoin. So there is structurally more demand than supply in Bitcoin. I think all we need is to release this sort of economic gloom that's hanging over us. If we do that, I think it's straight to the races.
And so that's from Bitwise. And what he's saying is accurate, right? We are seeing the suppression in real time. I have been covering this since February of this year when the market started falling. You can go to Farside Investors website. You can see all of the ETF flows from the beginning of the ETFs. And if you look at the beginning of 2025, which I'm scrolling to right here, this last column over here on the right, This shows you how many, the total inflow or outflows for all the ETFs. These are individual ETFs, their inflow or outflow for the particular day, and this is the total. What we saw happening in the beginning of 2025 was outflow, then billion inflow, then half a billion outflow, then billion inflow, billion inflow, billion inflow, billion inflow. And then what happened in February? Outflow, outflow, outflow. Almost every single day, we were seeing hundreds of millions of dollars to billions of dollars being removed, right? This was a $1 billion outflow day, $565 million outflow day. And what happened around this time that we started to see all these outflows? MicroStrategy was buying. MicroStrategy was purchasing all this Bitcoin in January and then February. Where were they getting the liquidity? 20,000 Bitcoin? Who was selling 20,000 Bitcoin that the price would not go up, right? Where was that liquidity coming from? Who was selling all this Bitcoin? And the week before that, who had 7,600 Bitcoin? The week before that, 10,000 Bitcoin. The week before that, 11,000 Bitcoin. Where is all this liquidity coming from? And so in my view, that as MicroStrategy was purchasing, the Bitcoin ETFs were selling. And so the Bitcoin ETFs became the liquidity for MicroStrategy. But now we're seeing a reversal. Now, and so by the way, that was the suppression. That was this price suppression. That's exactly what this Matt Hugin was talking about with the price suppression on the coins. I mean, he's the chief investment officer of an ETF. Tell him to go look at the ETF flows around the time MicroStrategy was buying. They were negative. Why were his customers or clients selling during that time period? Suppression. They were the liquidity. And so now that we're entering the middle of 2025, you can see that at basically the second half of April 2025, every single day we had inflows. 100 million inflow, 400 million inflow, 900 million inflow, 900 million inflow, 440 million inflow, 400 million inflow. The day before I'm doing this video, 600 million inflow, and it was almost $1 billion inflow just in the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF itself. And so that is the suppression. It is going on. And what we're now seeing is the reversal. So now where is the liquidity coming from when these Bitcoin ETF are purchasing these hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin? In my view, this is going to be part of the catalyst that drives the price higher, because there is no major liquidity provider at this point of 20,000 Bitcoin every single day. There's just not enough. And if there is, maybe Mt. Gox is selling some, maybe, like, who knows? But like, there will be a point where there's not enough liquidity for all the purchasing, especially when they're purchasing with money that they got from issuing debt. Anyway, moving right along, Howard Lutnick also talked about Bitcoin mining. Now, we've already heard from the president many different times that he said he wants every Bitcoin to be mined in the United States. Now, whether they're going to get every single Bitcoin mined here or not, I don't know. But we have seen a rapid expansion of the Bitcoin mining sector in the United States. A lot of companies have been kind of reshuffling their assets to kind of get into HPC and AI as well. Also, in terms of energy generation, and this is something that we've been hearing a lot about, and this is something that Howard Lutnick talks about here, is AI and Bitcoin mining work hand in hand, and they're going to start creating their own energy. Because the whole conversation is, well, Bitcoin mining pulls from the grid. Bitcoin mining is adding to, dirty energy or whatever. Well, so is everything else electric, but we don't talk about that. But they are going to, now they're trying, all the Bitcoin mining companies, they're basically trying to acquire as much power resources that they can, their own electric plants. So they're creating the electricity themselves and using the electricity themselves and hopefully making money in the process. So let's listen to what Howard Lutnick says over here. And don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. And by the way, if you want to help support the channel, you can become a channel member down below by clicking the join button to learn more about becoming a channel member, or you can leave a super chat in the comments below. Let's listen in.
We're going to make it, if you want to mine Bitcoin and you find the right place to do it, you can build your own power plant next to it. I mean, think about that for a second. You don't have to necessarily be on the grid, right? So, and you're going to see this happen, which is miners are going to put their data centers on top of gas fields, right? And then put a plant right next to them so that they won't be beholden to the drawing power and listening to all the stories about, oh, you're taking too much power and now the cost of operating my refrigerator is higher and all the things we have to deal with now. What you'll see is the next generation of miners in America will be able to control their destiny, control the cost of power. And I think that is going to turbocharge Bitcoin mining in America. And so the idea is for the investment accelerator to help people, as an example, who have those kind of ideas. How do they get those permits? How do you execute on that plan? You call the investment accelerator and we help you execute it.
Amazing. Does that also, would that incentivize people looking for maybe cheap renewable resources, and which would also help the Bitcoin narrative of like people using maybe more hydroelectric power, or as you referred to, maybe using flared gas to maybe capitalizing on that more, or methane emissions from dumps? Is that what you have in mind? Okay.
See, exactly. So hydro for sure, right? All these, you know, this allows, because the people who are in the Bitcoin community, they are incredibly entrepreneurial. I mean, that's why they're there in the first place, right? This is sort of the crux of entrepreneurial spirit, and so they'll go figure out, because these are sharp people, and they'll go figure out, okay, let's go harness America. Let's do this in America. America wants us to mine in America. Let's go figure out how to do it. Hydro will be great. Flaring, you know, you'll have all sorts of ways to create cheap power, and that cheap power will be off the grid, and they'll be mining it, right? And I think this is going to create a boom in Bitcoin mining in America.
Okay, so I don't know how much clearer it actually needs to be. Like, I just don't. I just don't. I mean, these Bitcoin mining companies are going much, 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 much higher. I told my viewers during the bear market to look at these companies' SEC filings, because all of the Bitcoin mining companies during the bear market were kind of reshuffling the decks. TerraWolf, what they did was very interesting. And their board of directors has people from like Lockheed Martin and stuff like that. When I saw that, I was like, okay, like there clearly is something bigger going on here, right? And we heard about Bitcoin mining like facilities becoming a potential national security protection, because they're going to be protecting the monetary system for the world, right? And potentially backing the dollar with it later down the road or something like that. Well, what happened with most of these Bitcoin mining companies over the last year is we had a roller coaster, literally up, down, up, down, up, down. But most of these have performed extremely well and probably outperformed most of your crypto holdings, right? I mean, you could see Bitfarms here went from $2 at the low all the way up to about $7, which is about a almost 3.5 times increase. 350% increase from May to November of last year. And now we've retraced all of those gains and we're back down to negative 75% from that high just a few months ago. This was from the Trump pump. And so now we're hearing from the Commerce Secretary about Bitcoin mining. We heard from the President about Bitcoins being mined in the United States. And so we have companies that are highly undervalued, right? Bitfarms is one that I've talked about for about a year now. It's about $500 million US in market cap. Meanwhile, it has 20 exahashes of hash rate. Granted, Bitfarms is a Canadian company, but they just grew their the footprint in the United States, where basically most of the company is in the United States right now. And I think that they did that strategically, knowing that this is a pro-Bitcoin and pro-Bitcoin mining administration. And so these are great opportunities. TerraWolf, Riot Platforms, Marathon Digital, Cypher Mining. I mean, there's so many different ones. Bitdeer is backed by Tether and those guys over there. And so do I think that the Bitcoin mining companies are going to do well? Yeah, I'm one of the only YouTubers out here in the crypto space that talks about these on a regular basis. There's a lot of people who are going to miss out. I told my viewers back in 2020 the best investments or that I was trading, I shouldn't say investments, the best stocks that I was trading were not cryptos in 2020. It was grayscale products because I was playing on the premium to the NAV. Everybody was focused on crypto, and granted, crypto did perform well in 2020, but grayscale products performed even better during a very short period of time. And so these Bitcoin mining companies, I'm looking at them and saying, okay, a lot of them are moving into AI as well, high performance compute. We have a pro crypto and pro Bitcoin mining administration. We hear from the Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, about freeing up these companies to do what they want to do and do what they need to do to grow their business. Guys, this could be really, really, really big from an investment perspective. And I think a lot of people are missing out here. Not financial advice. These are just my opinions, and obviously I could be wrong. Same thing about MicroStrategy, right? We have people who are irresponsibly long MSTR. They say that on social media. Like there's a whole group, irresponsibly long MSTR, where these people have all of their investments in MicroStrategy. Now, here's the deal. I'm not judging their investments. I'm just saying I could not do that myself because, again, there is a lot of risk here that a lot of MicroStrategy maximalists are not looking at in the fact that the dollar cost average keeps going higher. They keep buying the top of the market with debt in a bull run, as many of these other companies are doing. And the issue is, in my view, is that other companies are starting to buy Bitcoin also at the top. This is also kind of an indicator that we're close to the top of the cycle. Maybe not at the top of the cycle, but we're close to the top. So whether we're at the tippy top or at the top, it doesn't matter, right? Like if we top out at $150,000, even if we're talking about $120,000, that's still basically the top of the market, right? And so they're buying the top, and these other companies are buying the top as well. What happens in a bear market? MicroStrategy may be able to handle it, but some of the other companies may not be able to, like GameStop. And this is why I say, like, GameStop is a huge risk, and everybody's cheering them on buying Bitcoin. But for GameStop, it's a last-ditch effort. It literally is. This is their last chance to save the company, not save the brand, because the brand is a retail store that you don't really need anymore. It doesn't make any money. It's not. It's a failed business, and it's still worth $12 billion, right? I think they have about $5 billion in cash. But everyone's cheering on. Oh yeah, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. So if GameStop does start buying Bitcoin at $100,000, they're literally buying at the top of the market. If Bitcoin retraces to 50,000, GameStop's done, and they're going to liquidate everything, and that's going to push the price even lower. Now, from an investment perspective, that could be really good. From a trading perspective, that could be really good because there could be a lot of opportunity to make money there. But there's a lot of people who don't understand this. They're just cheering on GameStop, cheering on MicroStrategy, buying all this Bitcoin with debt. And while I'm not opposed to it, I just think that it's creating too much risk. And when there's a lot of risk in the environment, this is an indicator of the top of the market and also an indicator that people are not looking at the risk. This is effectively the same thing that happened back in 2020 cycle with FTX and Terra Luna and 3 Hours Capital and BlockFi and all these other companies that went bankrupt. There was so much risk and nobody saw the risk, right? They were giving 10% interest on your crypto loans, and people were like, oh yeah, they're just loaning it out. It's like, well, who are they loaning it to? And those people that are borrowing the coins, what are they betting on? Are they betting on the coins going higher or lower? And once all that liquidity and trading comes out and the borrowing stops, what happens to all that yield and lending and markets? Everything collapses on itself and craters. That's why when we start to see these kind of indicators, this could be something to understand, but there's a much larger plan here from the government perspective, from MicroStrategy perspective. And I think that this post explains some of it. And by the way, it's from the Irresponsibly Long group on X. Anyway, this user said this has to be among the top 3 most important clips of the year, next to the Bit Bond presentation by Andrew Hones. No one is really talking about this. Saylor gives us an inside scoop as to where Secretary Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary of the United States, stands with Bitcoin. When cameras went off at the crypto summit and the speed of this administration, Besant was very quiet going into this new administration, but Michael Saylor explains how progressive and deliberate he was at the crypto summit in moving Bitcoin forward. The Treasury Secretary, according to Michael Saylor, is the most important financial regulator in the world, and the speed of this administration's push for innovation is once in 100-year event. So we're going to listen to this from Michael Saylor. Again, keep in mind, right? Michael Saylor is a Bitcoin maximalist. He personally has a lot of Bitcoin invested, and from his company perspective, same thing. So let's listen to what he says about this. It's a little noisy because they're at a conference, but I think that it's important to at least get some context as to, differing point of views as to the bigger picture here with crypto. Let's listen in.
Insight, Bonnie, that comes from that summit is that the Secretary of Treasury shows up and was so very, very engaged. And you also saw the Secretary of Commerce very engaged.
That's
and you
Lutnick.
also saw Kelly Loeffler, the Secretary of Small Business Administration, very engaged. So you had 3 cabinet members extremely engaged, in addition to David Sachs, the crypto czar. And maybe the most powerful financial regulator in the world, certainly in the US government, but maybe in the world, is the Secretary of Treasury of the United States, so Scott Bessent. And Scott Bessent had been viewed to be progressive and innovative when he was nominated for the role, but he hadn't said very much on the topic of digital assets leading up to that summit. And so Bessent showed himself to be very well versed, very progressive, very thoughtful, and deliberate, and supportive. And I think that exceeds everybody's expectations. We knew David Sachs would be supportive, and we knew the president was supportive, but you could imagine an administration where you have 1 or 2 members of the cabinet that are supportive, but other members of the cabinet that are simply moderate, and they want to move forward in a deliberate, thoughtful, careful fashion, and they would slow things down. But what I saw at the White House was I saw that everybody is supportive, everybody is deliberate. This administration is moving faster with innovative programs and decisive, courageous, pro-business, pro-technology, pro-innovation programs. It's moving faster than any administration in my lifetime. You have to go all the way back to Thatcher and Reagan in the 80s to see such pro-innovation, pro-business, pro-freedom type actors. But even they, I don't think, moved nearly as quickly and decisively, and they didn't have so many intricate topics. So I really think this is like a once in 50 years, could be once in 100-year type event. And Bessent's actions and his words, both before and if you look at the interviews that he's given after.
And so for me, when I hear things like this, I just think of it like this, right? Whether you like the president or the administration or not, whether you like Bitcoin or not, whether you like the billionaires in crypto or not, the market is moving in one direction, and that is towards more adoption, more growth, more usage, more coins, more technology, more back-end integrations, more wealth, more value, right? More valuation. And so whether you like it or not, right, Bitcoin is here to stay. Bitcoin is going to continue to grow from a store of value perspective, from a investment perspective, from a cross-border payment perspective, and even micropayments in some aspects using the Lightning Network. But this is here to stay, and it's going to continue to grow. But there's a lot of people, guys, they can't see all of this. They don't understand all of this, or they'll look at this and say, yeah, but Howard Lutnick doesn't make the laws. Yeah, but that's BlackRock, and they're doing what's right for them. Yeah, but he's just trying to pump his own ETF, right? I mean, literally, there could be excuse after excuse after excuse why somebody does not like this, or that this is not going to work out, or that are there scams in crypto? Absolutely. Are there people who lose money in crypto? Absolutely. Are there Cryptos that have real technology and some that don't, absolutely. But guess what? There's stocks like that. There's businesses like that. There's people like that. It happens in everything. Either you are going to invest in this asset or you are not. Many of you, I would imagine most of you guys watching this video are invested in crypto and probably very heavily. But for your friends, your family, your coworkers, they're going to come to you and ask you about this. It will happen, right? Probably at $200,000 or $250,000. For me, the indicator is the first question I get from somebody who never talks about crypto or Bitcoin or investing or finance or money. Any question that I get about Bitcoin from any of these people, that's the top signal for me. That's a top signal because it happens every single time, every single cycle. And so, and it's not just me, it's a lot of other people as well. You know, most people that I've talked to that are in crypto, they look back and they're like, yeah, I did. My coworker was asking me about this. My friend was asking me about this coin. Top indicator. And this cycle, we've already had one top, which was in November, right? During the Trump pump. During the Trump pump, I got those questions from multiple people about crypto, Bitcoin, this coin, that coin. Once we started to come down in the market, I realized, whoa, that was the top. And when it happens again, top indicator again. But, you know, there's people who are not going to understand this. Like they will buy the top. I don't think that retail should be buying the top of the market like Wall Street is. Wall Street can afford to lose this money, right? And not only can they afford to lose it, what MicroStrategy is doing with all the purchases with debt, they're pushing the debt very far out. And it's going to be devalued debt by that point anyway. But that's not what the average person should be doing. And so what we're seeing from all of these clips and from all of these signals is that the money is flowing in, right? We're seeing that in the ETFs. The money is starting to flow back in. And this is just the beginning. This could go on for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. But there is going to be a top at some point, right? Where this is irrational. And this is potentially going to be with, you know, the stablecoin legislation and some of the other stuff going on, maybe some other companies announcing or the government announcing something with the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We were supposed to hear about how much Bitcoin the government actually has and how much they put into the reserve. We haven't heard about that yet. So that could be one of the catalysts that kind of drives euphoria in the markets where everybody wants to dump their bank account in. But we're going to be at much higher numbers at that point. For you and I, these are the exit points, right? Sell the rip, buy the dip. But a lot of people are going to be buying that rip. And that's the sad part, right? Because they're just buying into the FOMO, the idea of getting rich on crypto at the same time everybody else is doing it, right? And you're going to see story after story of this one made, $1 billion on Shiba Inu coin. This one made $10 million on USDC coin. It's like, how does that even happen? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it happens or how it happens. Somebody who sees somebody else on TikTok and they say, oh, I made $5 million on USDC. They're going to go buy USDC thinking they're going to make money too, not realizing it's a stable coin because they did absolutely no research. These firms at the very high level, like BlackRock and, Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, like they've been researching this shit for years at a very high level, and a lot of money they put in to learning about how these markets work. Michael Saylor, same thing. MicroStrategy, same thing. Hundreds of millions of dollars to protect this stuff, to continue to research it. And there's individuals who just are not going to do even the slightest bit of research into this, and people are going to get wrecked in the market, right? But the Bitcoin boom is inevitable. Even Kraken, the crypto exchange, their chief financial officer predicts that more than 10,000 companies could own Bitcoin in the next few years. He said to everyone wearing an orange tie, it's good to be on the team with you. At least that's what Michael Saylor said. So they talk about Kraken's CFO made perhaps the most interesting prediction. She expects about 20% of the roughly 55,000 public companies to hold Bitcoin a couple of years from now. Now, keep in mind, that may not be directly owning Bitcoin. That could be owning Bitcoin stocks or Bitcoin-related ETFs, and it's probably already underway. We're also hearing that legislators have finally passed legislation for a Bitcoin reserve bill in Arizona. The House of Representatives approved 2 bills proposing different methods that the state could use to establish a crypto reserve. Why are they doing this? I would imagine first mover advantage, right? A lot of states are trying to pass these Bitcoin reserves. I don't know that they're going to do it, but keep in mind, this is not like to make you rich, right? It's really to protect these states from the debt that they are in, right? Because a lot of states, just like the federal government, are in the negative, you know, and there's a lot of money that's being spent. And so to have some protection on the other side of that, or to have protection in the event of a fiat collapse, I think it's important to a lot of these states, and that's why we're going to see this. But we'll have to kind of wait and see how fast this actually happens, because you guys know everything takes forever when it comes to kind of implementing something like that. And we're also hearing the SoFi CEO says that their fintech bank is bringing back crypto investing. And so again, why? Because of a fundamental shift in the regulatory environment. And so the money is going to be flowing in. It already is flowing in, and it's going to continue to flow in. And we are going to see much higher prices. But make sure that you guys have an exit strategy for this market, because otherwise we're going to be in the bear market, and you're going to be hoping for a bull market. And they only come once every 4 years, at least in crypto. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. I'll see you guys when I see you. Invest responsibly and crypto on.